It is about trust. Wherever you need to think of trust, you need to think of blockchain going forward. Let me look at it in the next couple of minutes from the perspective of the public sector. And as you are all aware, our Honorable Chief Minister has been one of the pioneers in the use of various kinds of technologies in the public sector for the last 2 decades. And currently he is supporting in a big way the e-Pragati program. Incidentally, sir, if you remember, exactly 2 years ago in this very hall, 9th of October 2015, the program was launched and it's at a very critical stage at this point of time of implementation. So this blockchain is the beauty is that it's about trust. It is kind of self-policing and self-protecting by its very design. So it is useful, it's a very good use case for several scenarios in the government. Several countries today national governments are experimenting and piloting this concept in the public sector, like Sweden, Estonia, Ghana, Honduras, Georgia, and so on. And countries like Italy, they have set up a special task force to identify the use cases for the blockchain technology. And I'm happy that the OECD has invited India to be a member of this thematic group on blockchain. Having said that, let me pick up only one use case and speak a couple of minutes on that, which is the land registry. Globally, if you see the governments thinking towards blockchain, it goes automatically to the land registry, where trust is the key for any land-related transaction. Trust between the buyer and the seller, trust of the whole community in this transaction is the essence of blockchain. So there is a natural match between the land registry and the blockchain technology. It is a high-value transaction and low-volume transaction is the typical of the land registries. And trust and assurance are very much necessary there. In addition to security and transparency, which are also very critical in the land transactions. And in India, if you see, there is a report which says, McKinsey report, that for want of a proper trust chain in the land records regime, we are losing 1.38% of the GDP is getting eroded because of this reason. If only we are able to straighten out this land records regime, then we have that gain to the economy straight away. So what does it take to create such a trust chain in the land records regime? The first one is the unique identification of the parcel, each parcel of land and each property in a state or in the country. So that uniqueness comes through a fingerprinting exercise, something like, in Aadhaar we had the fingerprint and iris. So the equivalent of that here is the lat long of the centroid of a parcel or a property. Could be the fingerprint for that. In addition, we need the unique ID of the parties executing the land transaction. I said that we have a digital identity online. So identity of the individuals is assured already in India. On land, each parcel of land and its attributes, and attempting to do all these things as we go forward. For every parcel, we have about 2.7 crore, that means 270 million parcels and properties in this state. And we are creating the single source of truth in the form of a Bhuseva project. And equivalent of Aadhaar, we are trying to do the step 1, step 2, step 3 to create the single source of truth. Then the question of applying blockchain would come. So it's an opportune time for us to think of creating a use case. I will have a new and exciting technology called blockchain. and I wish the event.
First and foremost, I think, is the fact that Mr. Naidu's leadership in the IT space has been legendary over many decades. He was actually the first political leader to really evangelize the use of technology in government, and while bringing the IT revolution to the erstwhile Andhra Pradesh state, also advocated the use of technology in the government, and in fact brought all the country's leaders, both bureaucratic and political, to the state to understand the potential. And the first national IT conference, therefore, was first national e-governance conference was held in Hyderabad for 2 years in succession, and then a lot of other things followed. The emphasis which Mr. Naidu placed on technology also helped to create a whole generation of leaders, and in fact 3 national IT secretaries were nurtured in the stable of Mr. Naidu. The third one is today the IT secretary, and myself and Mr. Satyanaranayana, who have been 2 earlier ones. For the benefit of visitors who have come from overseas, I also want to take just a moment to tell you about NASSCOM and also about Mr. Naidu. NASSCOM is the industry body which represents the IT sector in India, the $150-odd billion industry in India, and all segments of this industry, which is now quite diversified and has grown way beyond its original origins of being largely focused on IT services. Today it covers engineering, R&D, products, internet, mobile, all kinds of different areas, which are all part of the huge industry that it is today. So it has many different hues, and NASSCOM has had the privilege from the inception of this whole revolution of leading the charge and taking the Indian IT industry across the world. The efforts of bodies like NASSCOM would not have been possible if it had not been for the kind of strong support that political leadership across the country, both at the national and state level, provided. It is often said of politicians that they promise a lot and deliver little, but Mr. Naidu is a unique exception. He always delivers more than he promises, and every single industry which has invested will bear testimony to the fact that he always delivers much more than what he promises. And none of those who came ever regretted that decision. As some of the miracles of the past are sought to be recreated in the new state of Andhra Pradesh, it's also important to look at the new realities. This industry is no longer the industry which it was. It is changing rapidly and in many, many different ways. And people are looking at these changes and drawing their own inferences about what is happening. There are industry trends which are making it, which are bringing in, for example, automation, new technologies like SMAC, which has already been there for some time, social media, mobility, analytics, cloud, but also the newer technologies like artificial intelligence, data analytics, robotics, machine-to-machine communication, and so on. And blockchain is one of those new breed of technologies which hold enormous potential. But also, apart from technology, the way that the industry is changing today is that it's deeper in terms of technology. The requirement of skills is far more intensive. The admixture of domain, consulting and innovation as a part of the offering which the IT industry today delivers across the world has become increasingly important. All of these have meant big shifts. And sometimes these shifts are being confused by observers to say that the industry is facing challenges, or that the industry in India in particular is facing dark days ahead. In fact, the reality is quite contrary, that the industry has adapted extremely well to these changes. Today, global companies from all over the world, not only technology companies, but non-technology companies setting up their technology arm, are coming into India at a scale and a pace which is unprecedented today. I can tell you that as the head of NASSCOM, with all the information at our disposal. We have, for example, more than 1,100 global in-house centers today.
T's must come together to define another T, which is transformation. Visionary leadership in the political sphere is equally important as ideas which are emanating from the business. Business requires an ecosystem and governments have to take a lead. Blockchains globally are finding no takers because in the typical business world, quick wins must be defined. And what are those quick wins will be decided by the way the governments are moving. I am delighted, and State Bank of India, as the bankers to the nation, is also quite pleased to find the ecosystem getting formed in a definitive way at Visakhapatnam as the future IT hub. I assure the government of Andhra Pradesh, led by our innovative Chief Minister, that we will do whatever we can in providing used cases, in finding quick wins to establish the POCs or take the POCs to the next level, and helping other practitioners and other players to harness and galvanize the talent that we have to transform this society. Thank you very much.